Right, well, welcome everybody to the Blue Light Hub. I'm afraid your regular host and Blue Light Hub lead, Martin, has been called away this week, so I'm afraid you're stuck with me. But today we're focusing on recruitment, and we have some brilliant speakers attending to share their experience. For those of you that are new to the Hub, um, this is designed to help communicators across police, fire, ambulance, and any sort of blue light organisation, but also their partner organisations and councils and the NHS to tackle challenges together. One of the superpowers of being in the public sector is that you can borrow and nick ideas off each other. And in the area of recruitment today, we're going to focus on the challenges that we all face together, how you can improve your recruitment process with MOTs, and some inspiration from some other campaigns from across the United Kingdom that have delivered brilliant results. I'm John Paul. I'm the collaboration director at CAN. CAN has run over 3,000 campaigns for the public sector, including many recruitment campaigns. We've also helped the public sector generate a lot of revenue through advertising. So we buy and sell advertising. And I like to say that we're the world's only net negative advertising agency. So today, we're all coming together to look at the challenges that we all face, how we can improve with MOTs, and some inspiration for some brilliant campaigns from across the United Kingdom. For those that you don't know or haven't been to a Blue Light Comms Hub before, it was set up by CAN and by Turn the Page, James Morton, who has a background in fire, and is hosted usually by Martin, who has a background in police. And if you could move the slide along, Danielle. CAN has run about 3,000 campaigns, generated lots of revenue for the public sector, and focuses on, my role is collaboration director, where we've managed at one point to get 108 councils to run a recruitment campaign together. And that was in fostering, which on the next slide, if we can have a look. Apologies, no, we need to look at inclusive recruitment advertising, and the Fire Standards Board challenges leaders to ensure that they improve recruitment activities to promote a range of careers and opportunities to attract, recruit and retain people critically from a variety of backgrounds. Now, our experience at CAN is derived a lot from foster. So if you move the slide along, please. In foster care recruitment, we've learned a lot about what the barriers are to effective recruitment. And we've taken these learnings and applied them to more general recruitment. If you can move the slide along, please, Danielle. The general challenges that we find ourselves coming up against all the time are insufficient time and insufficient budget. So resources are always really, really tight. Recruiters tell us frequently that response rates are falling and also quality of applications is going down. There is that challenge from the fire service, but generally to make sure that our recruitment ensures that we represent the communities that we serve and that we cater for a whole range of needs, such as neurodiversity. And we're also seeing in many organisations that our inability to recruit the talent that we need means that we're having to increase expenditure on agencies. So getting recruitment right is absolutely essential for the financial health of our organisations, but also ensuring that we represent and serve the communities in our areas. So we can move the slide on, please, Danielle. We've worked a lot with the teams at COSLA who run My Job Scotland and West Midlands Employers who run WM Jobs, and that's helped us really understand the sector. And in working with these two organisations, someone kept coming up in conversation, and that person is Tony Harding. If you move the slide along, please, Danielle. Now, Tony, we have started partnering recently because he has had an amazing career in recruitment advertising, particularly in public sector recruitment. He's worked at The Guardian, at Trinity Mirror, set up his own agencies, worked at Feather Brooksbank, advises other media agencies as well. So what he doesn't know about recruitment really isn't worth knowing. And more recently, if we can flip the slide on, he's set up Momentum to specifically support recruiters across the public sector in improving and addressing some of the challenges that they face. So, Tony, could I hand over to you and you take us through a little bit about what you've learnt in running MOTs for various organisations and some of the things that everyone can improve on together?
I'm here, so that is me. This is me thinking I'm a hairy biker. I don't have a bike, by the way, but that tends to be the recognition I used to get as you one of the hairy bikers. At Christmas, I look like Santa, so I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Now, the basis of my experience is obviously thanks JP for giving me such a nice rundown, but also thanks for Can for letting me have a chance to speak. Anyone who knows me knows that I love talking about recruitment, so it's one of those things that on a Friday afternoon I don't mind doing, especially as I've just been phoned by my garage to tell me I've got a £1,000 bill for my car. So that's always a good thing. My background's really simple. Is I've lived and breathed recruitment. When I was doing this slide, it was interesting. I used to have to swear it's 30 years, so it's quite an indictment to the amount of time I've spent on recruitment. My background started out at The Guardian. I used to run the Scottish office for The Guardian. Then I set up a recruitment advertising agency. Then after that, I worked for people like Trinity Mirror. I actually ran a job called Fish for Jobs, which if people remember that, it still exists, I think. I obviously carried on working with consultancy type work, and one of the key things that I still do is I still advise My Job Scotland, which is the 32 council portal for the Scottish recruitment jobs. The premise of all of my thinking I'm going to take you through today is I'm going to get you to go through what I've done with the recruitment MOT and actually show you an example using Police Scotland as an example of something that I'm currently working on and something that we've worked on over the last couple of years. For me, the biggest traditional thing that's changed is the way that a candidate actually looks for a job. So when you look at the marketplace changing, I probably went through a period after I had the advertising agency and worked for Fish for Jobs where my skills as a recruitment person were not really required. People used advertising agencies, people use people like Barker's, TMP, Austin, all these old agencies that used to run campaigns for them. This all sort of stopped. And basically what happened is we ended up in a situation where we're in a plentiful place, but clients were actually continuously trying to find ways of getting them as cost effectively can. So things like job boards took off and so on and so forth. But the marketplace has changed over the last 4 or 5 years, and certainly post-COVID, certainly in the public sector, recruitment is a much harder sell than it used to be. So actually getting things like storytelling and brand and everything about it right is really important. So I started something called the Recruitment MOT. It was on the back of my being asked by lots of my old clients to come and do more talks about, and more about, different things to do with their recruitment life cycle. I actually decided it was much easier to develop it into a product. So this is the product. Basically, I look at 16 key areas and then score people out of 100. Most important thing for me is that, what we're trying to do is look at the process. It's not about looking at people. It's about looking at the process. And it is effectively an MOT. I lift the bonnet up and I go underneath and I cover all these areas. And these are the sort of things that we do. So I look at everything from people's websites and ATSs right the way through to what they do with social media, what type of response they get, etc., etc. And I do it in a very cost-effective way. The whole point of it is to make certain that it doesn't hinder what you're doing and to give you what I class as pragmatic solutions. And you might ask yourself why you might need a recruitment MOT. Now, for me, these are the 3 key reasons why people have been looking at having an MOT for their organisation. The principal one, actually, I think is number 3. You're under pressure from management and need to show them what you're doing against the market. One of the key problems that most organizations have is that recruitment sits at the bottom of the chain and is often gets blamed for everything. So when you're looking for diverse candidates, you're looking for, a split range of maybe male, female, etc., etc. Everybody has a reason for asking you to do it, but everybody has a reason for telling you how to do it. And that is one of the key problems that you have when you look at recruitment, is that there isn't actually often anybody you can turn around and say, well, look, we're doing our best and we are providing the best results that we possibly can. So the MOT actually helps with lots of different things. So it delivers plentiful parts of support. One of the key things for me is it's about getting the best out of the resources that you've got, but also boosting the quality. And one of the key things that I find when I work with clients is that you know, my job is to be the loudest voice, and in that, you know, an internal voice often doesn't shout very loud because it has lots of different ways that it can't cut through, whereas an outside voice can actually, my job is to say what I think and see what I think. And the key to it all is, when you look at different things, is making it work. And I'm very lucky that I've worked with lots of great clients. Obviously, I'm working with Police Scotland at the minute, but you know, the client base that I've had, every single MOT that I've done has been something that has really worked for them. And I think for me, the key to it is making certain that I effectively become part of the team. As I said to you before, it's about providing pragmatic solutions. And a lot of what I'm doing is giving common sense advice based on what we learned when we had the agencies, when we used to get individual job briefs and so on and so forth. So from my point of view, getting good feedback from clients is really important. I want to talk to you about what we've done for Police Scotland. I was asked to do an MOT about two and a half years ago. And the reality of it is, my job was to go in and have a look at it. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't really know what I was letting myself in for. I don't mean that in a good way. There were so many bits and parts of Police Scotland going on that it was actually quite hard to get things together and actually figure out how much work we had to do and how much we had to look at different things. So the key part of it was getting the audit part right. So from my point of view, these are all the areas that we looked at. So we looked at recruitment brand, we looked at better quality, we looked at storytelling, we looked at all the different things we need to do. And it basically meant that we had all these audit sections. So I'll just give you a chance to have a quick read of them. These are all really important. If I start at the top, successful recruitment is an obvious one, but one of the key things is competition. So you can imagine it being a very competitive place when you're looking for things like police officers. I'm sure it is for people who are here on the call from fire services and so on and so forth. But your competition, you need to look at it and see what you're doing. One of the key things that when we were looking at the competition was things like Royal Navy, the Air Force, the Army. These are all key people who are, you know, organizations who are recruiting at the same time. So you're up against a really strong storytelling type of organization, but also what you're up against is a multi-million-pound campaigns. So that's a key part of this. So looking at what they were doing and seeing what Police Scotland were doing was really quite important. I think it's really important to go around that circle and say, actually, most of the other things we looked at, so things like what sort of jobs you've got, you know, comparing salaries, looking at the, you know, where you were, what your position was, what your branding was, what the key elements were that were required by Police Scotland to improve the process. And again, I go back to this. This is not, it's not something that is aimed at people. It's aimed at improving the recruitment life cycle, improving, you know, improving the process so that everything that you do becomes something that is tangible and that everything that you do brings better results. You know, things like targeting, talent banking, that sort of thing become a really important thing. And one of the key things is looking at the process and looking at everything that you do from MI, website, and obviously looking at the ATS. What you do is you split it into this. This is how I score an MOT. So if you just look at that, I'll give you a couple of seconds to have a quick look at that. These are all the key areas that you score out of 100 comes from. Now, typically, a lot of people will score between 40 and 65. That's a typical score for most people. The aim really is to try and get yourselves up around the 75, 80 mark, and that's a key part of it. Give you a clue, the highest score I've given is 89 out of 100. The lowest score I've given is 32. Police Scotland actually scored pretty well. They're doing an awful lot of things really well. And I remember having a conversation with a senior person in the police, and that I basically agreed with them that I said, look, you do things functionally pretty well. So most things were pretty good. So it was easy to score some of the areas. But one of the key things that we looked at was obviously the branding for police officers was great, but there wasn't any branding for Police Scotland staff roles. So if you imagine that you score 4 out of 5 on the branding for police officers and maybe 1 out of 5 for the staff roles, there's something there to work on. Other things that we looked at, you know, things like storytelling and what we did on social media, looking at the MI and data and how we capture it. They're the sort of things that you look at and you go, right, okay, we can fundamentally move these on and change this, the outcomes of what we're actually delivering. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about brand and storytelling. Obviously, it's quite important when you have any organisation in the public sector to actually put together, you know, something that the public want to respond to. I mean, you'll see the army adverts, you'll see the RAF adverts, you'll see all the different things, but you're in a massive competition to try and get candidates. On the back of public sector organisations finding it harder to recruit post-COVID, you have to look at all these different things. And these are some of the things that we looked at. So we looked at copy, we looked at story, we looked at content, we looked at imagery, we looked at all the different things that you needed to do to say, right, where are the issues? What do we need to solve? And this is where we came up with some simple things. So this was the branding and imagery pre-MOT. As you can see, it's strong branding. It's got a nice message on it. It was certainly doing a lot of the job that the police officer recruitment product required, but there was little or no support for the Police Scotland staff side. And that was something that was an issue, because you do have both sides of the coin needing to have a job, needing to have a brand. I looked at the website, there was an awful lot of copy on there. In places, it was a bit underwhelming. From my point, it was definitely a functional career website. It worked, but it needed some places that could be improved. There weren't a lot of social media templates. There wasn't a lot of supporting video or sound bites. And I think one of the key things that needed to come out of it was recruitment needed to work closer with corporate comms. Recruitment is obviously set up to do agile recruitment. It's set up to do things quickly, whereas corporate comms obviously works in a campaign environment. And what we had to do was bring all these things together. So working closely with the corporate comms team, we basically delivered a police brand that is based on a job like no other. So you'll see there in the orange colours, that's a C3 stroke sort of customer service role. These are the police officer jobs that surround it. And one of the key things to this was needing to make something work across all parts. So you can have things like a finance job like no other, an IT job like no other, and so on and so forth. And it's a brand that works across both sides of the table. And the key to it really is making certain that you have imagery that suits, and you actually have things like colours that can change the way that people and candidates look at things. The key part of making this work really was the collaboration. Now, there were some bumps in the road, I'm not going to lie. It wasn't as easy as it could have been at times, just purely because of the way everybody needs to change the way they were thinking. But to develop something that we've developed, I always say, as you can see, I'm using the word we. This is me again, being part of a business. But the key part of it is we started having regular Thursday meetings. We set up a team for recruitment and comms, and we actually split different things. And when you see things actually coming out and working in results, you can actually see how this works. So if you look at a job like no other, the orange ones there, they're all for the C3 jobs. We've now got the colours on the website, so people can now click into that. They've now got their own branding. One of the key successes was the bottom left. You'll see recruiting finance professionals. There was an awful lot of pressure internally, as there often is. We want to go to an agency, we want to use an agency, we want to get it done through an agency. There was an awful lot of kickback from the recruitment team to say, no, we've got branding, we've got things that we can support it with, we've got talent banking that we can go after some of these people ourselves. We think we can do it. So in the middle of July, they did a campaign last year where I think they were recruiting for 9 people. They managed to recruit 8, and they obviously saved themselves a 6-figure recruitment consultancy fee. So that's the key of a brand working and helping the staff side actually work and get jobs filled. I talk a lot about this, for those of you who might remember, you'll see the Ladybird book in the middle. Health and safety would have a field day by looking at it. But from my point of view, everything is about the adventures on your island. And this was one of the key things that we needed to do with Police Scotland, was to get those stories out into the open. And it's about using social media. It's about telling people more about the job. It's about using people to deliver testimonial type videos, to look at the benefits, look at everything that we possibly can. And it was actually in perfect harmony that the recruitment team were working hand in hand with the corporate comms team. And what you start doing is you start delivering success. So one of the key things that they've done is created, I think they're up to about 18 videos now that have been used on social media. Have gone through all the different things that you need to think of social media wise. They're on TikTok, they're on Facebook, they're on all the meta stuff. And basically each of these videos, they're generating a minimum of 150,000 views. When you look on Facebook, that's fantastic. In fact, some of them have done way more than that. And basically what you're doing is you get more people who are interacting with your brand. And this is one of the key things to success. So the big question then is, you know, what internally are Police Scotland thinking about what's happening with the work that's gone on. I'll give you a chance to read that. This is from Alan Mulholland, the Chief Inspector, who I work for. So what we based it on collaboration and coming up with ideas, a few different iterations. And one of the key things to this is that as a business and as an organisation, Police Scotland have recognised the fact that a job like no other is a key brand, and it's been talked about by the senior staff members. It's been talked about in the communities. It's something that is really going forward for Police Scotland. One of the key things that has to be part of this, and I think using CAN is a big thing for anybody who has the opportunity, is that you've got to get your process, your ATS and your MI right. And one of the key things that came out of the MOT for me was to look at the data response and to try and figure out what things like, you know, your recruitment life cycle is going to be. Can you do workforce planning from it? So this is a question for everybody who's on the call. Is the first question is, do you know the data for all your response? I can't see any faces, so I'll just presume there's a few of you will say yes, a few of you will say no. Have you ever applied for a job on your own site? That's one of the key things I say to everybody. If I'm doing an MOT, it is to completely go through the whole process as if you're a candidate. See how clunky it is. See whether there's any things that you would change. And what was great about it, even the corporate comms team, they were applying for jobs to look at it and see what they could improve. And it's gone so far with Police Scotland that they've actually even now employed somebody, a strategist, who's one of the specialities is having CRM experience to see how you respond to candidates and so on. So these are the sort of things you can get out of it. And one of the key part of it is getting an awful lot more out of your ATS. The amount of people who buy an ATS and then do not have the opportunity to maximize what the ATS is about, it's really important to figure out what you can do and work with the ATS provider to get the most out of your system. And this then comes back down to one of the key things. This is evidence. You know, I'm a believer in evidence when you do recruitment. The key thing in the MOT is say, look, you know, this is what you spent last year. This is what you spent in previous years. What can we do? How can we track that? And it means that we can figuratively see how we need to spend money going forward. So we can look at the cost per application. We can look at the number of applications. We can look at the amount of traffic that we get through the website, where they drop off, how many people come in, how many people, you know, what's the attrition rate, etc., etc. And the key part of this is to get as much data as you possibly can. That's what I come out with every MOT, is to say, look, you know, if you don't know your data, then you're not going to be able to recruit properly. So your MI has to be proper. It has to be something that you really, really enjoy gathering. And I say to everybody, I says, you can have something as expansive as a media dashboard, but a Word Excel sheet with everything on, so you at least know what your cost per application is. I think the world's changed as well, and I'm sure Cam will talk about it. I'm sure the guys from corporate comms who are on here today will talk about it. It's about tracking the response. It's using the code. It's using the pixels. It's using all the technology that's now available. All these things didn't exist. And I think the most important thing is then to figure out, you know, what the actual solutions are, and actually figure out if you can put into place, you know, new things, you know, change things, look at your videos, see what works, see what doesn't. And what you need to do then is figure out how the reaction is within the recruitment teams and figure out what the sort of success rate is. So here's another couple of quotes. I'll let you read them. But, you know, when we did the MOT, the key part of the stakeholder is getting the stakeholders to understand why we were doing it. And the whole point of it is to say, look, you know, we're trying to improve things. And my job is always to give people a reality. And, you know, the scoring points that we had when we did this, if I looked at it now, we've probably improved the Police Scotland score by about 20%. So across the board, everything is working. The applications are up, the branding's better, there's better storytelling, the corporate comms is working across, you know, hand in hand with the recruitment team. Everything is far better for doing an MOT. So I've got probably a few questions that you might want to ask, but I'm not going to keep waffling on. It's Friday afternoon. But one thing I'll leave you with is, if you did an MOT, what would you score?
Brilliant, Tony. Thank you so much. If you do have any questions for Tony, please put them into the chat. I've got a couple, if it's all right to start with. You mentioned there's, speaking to senior leadership and SLT, we often find that people in communications, people in recruitment, are aware that there are problems, but the top-down pressure is really not helping them. Have you had any experience of that, and how do you get through it to get SLT on side and understanding what the challenges are?
The biggest problem with recruitment is always in any organization, everybody seems to think they know a better way of doing it. So organizations don't really physically understand the actual real nature of a marketplace. I'll use diversity as a great example, is that everybody says, oh, it should be really easy for us. We're such and such, and we recruit all these people, on a regular basis. Why are we not got lots of diverse candidates? Well, in Scotland, for example, it's not a huge diverse candidate population, and you're up against people like Aegon, you're up against all the different blue chip clients as well, because everyone's got the same issues. So sometimes you've just got to sit in the room like I did when I presented the MOT and say, look, this is the real marketplace, and you as a management team need to understand that this is not an easy recruit. I think recruitment gets so many things, shouted at them from great height. This isn't right. This isn't. Why are you doing this? What's why we're not doing that? Why we're not recruiting that? And the best thing about an MOT is often that you can say, look, these are all the great things we are doing. What else do you want me to do, sort of thing. But you also need to figure out as well that there's not one solution for everything. When I say to everybody, I always say, look, I'm not always right, but I've got 30 years of experience, which will give you an indication of what I think you might want to try.
Leanne, who is our lead at CAM for Scotland, has been supporting Police Scotland in running a recruitment campaign recently. So, Leanne, could you share a little bit of that with us?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Leanne. Thanks, Danielle. Just move that along. I'm Leanne. I am lead for Scotland. I'm the dedicated resource in Scotland, been working with CAN for a year. Previously, before that, 20 years experience in public sector strat comms, mostly in health. I'm CIPR chartered practitioner, which means I'm absolutely obsessed with measurement and evaluation, and I'm very annoying about that. So big shout out for making my job with Police Scotland easy, Tony, because all of that work that went before what we're doing with the team, helping them with the use of channel, it's just been so much smoother with the creatives and the video and all the work that's gone on underneath that before we got to it has made things so much smoother for us to be able to help the team. So I must acknowledge that actually it's been immense amount of work that's gone on as a background to where we came into the process, I suppose. Budgets are very difficult for everybody in the public sector at the moment. We need to be cost effective. We need to be showing our workings. And my job, I think, working with Police Scotland is very much about that. It's about use of channel, being able to start answering the questions that Tony just talked about there about quality applications, about cost of application, being able to help the team really work out what this means, not finger in the air types of calculations, but really starting to do the work with the use of digital advertising and paid media. Thanks, Danielle. I just want to introduce Corinne, who I've been working very closely with at Police Scotland.
Yeah, thank you. So hi everybody, I'm Corinne and I work as a corporate communications project lead at Police Scotland, and I've worked there over the past 5 years and worked on a whole range of different campaigns. But over the past year, I've very much been focused on taking on board the feedback and advice from the MOT that Tony spoke to, and really working on establishing the recruitment brand alongside our in-house recruitment team, and working on an always-on campaign for police officer recruitment, which started in September of last year. And there's been a lot of collaboration between our team and recruitment, as the key stakeholder, but also a lot of my job has been working with other experts in our corporate communications department, such as our graphic design team and our executive account managers who report directly into our service executive. And I have to say, during this time, I have become very passionate about recruitment marketing. The always-on nature of this campaign has allowed me to really focus in and understand and anticipate the needs of our recruitment team and better understand the challenges we as a service can face in recruitment of police officers and staff. And one of the real joys of recruitment marketing compared to some of the other behaviour change campaigns I've worked on in the violence against women and girls space or around the services values is that we can really measure communications outcomes very closely. We can measure them daily, weekly, monthly, and then use that insight to be really agile. And that's something that we have been trying to do throughout this campaign, but the recent work with CAN is really helping us to enhance that as well.
Amazing. Thanks, Corinne. Thanks, Danielle. So what was needed from CAN? We're just going to give you a bit of an overview. We're right in the middle of the campaign at the moment, so it's live at the moment. So some of this is to be continued, I suppose. So, but it's a really good point in the process for me and Corinne to just speak about what we've been doing together. She's already just mentioned there that it's an always-on approach. It's been running since September, but CAN started working in January on having a wee look at focus on police officer roles. We've got quite an expertise in around recruitment and use of paid media because we do a lot in around foster care recruitment, which is, you know, extremely similar principles. So we could bring a lot of that learning to this type of recruitment. We, you know, the Police Scotland really wanted to increase quality completed applications because, you know, that impacts on time, it impacts on staff time. If you're getting loads and loads of applications that won't, you know, progress, then that's got a staff time, you know, kind of connection to that. So for us, they were looking for just a few more ideas and the use of paid media that would maybe look at the quality completed applications, which means in turn managing additional and new digital channels for what was an existing and is an existing live campaign. So what I mean by that is that there's other folks actually helping Police Scotland with some of the channels. So we have introduced a couple of other channels, few things up our sleeves that we know work for recruitment and helping Police Scotland with particular channels. So we're not duplicating across the media mix. We're working on particular channels and outputs for the team. And they really wanted a bit of help with the end-to-end measurement of started and completed applications. As I just said there, I'm obsessed with measurement. I've studied it in depth, and being in-house for 20 years, it's a part of probably my professional experience that absolutely drove me up the bend and round the wall, and whatever combination of words you want around that. When you're doing work and you work in comms and you can't actually show your workings, it's very frustrating. So it's been brilliant to work with the team to just put the tools in place really so that we can track and we can give them the information, start to move towards a clear cost per application, what Tony was talking about there just before. And for us, reduce cost per click on each platform strategy. So whatever we're doing, getting Police Scotland the best value for their money, given that, you know, budgets are tight and we need to be using public money really in the best cost effective way we can do it. Thanks, Danielle. What we achieved. So the first thing then we met Police Scotland was that search wasn't activated. So that's Google search or Bing search. They had planned in broadcast, Sky, I think it was Sky TV ads, and definitely radio. So for us at CAN, we have got a particular expertise about user search. For recruitment, for us, it's an absolute must. If you're putting out any information into the ether, what do people do? They Google, or they go on Bing if that's your default browser. So that's the first thing we did. We activated search. So that's just a very simple advert. So that, you know, it's top of the page in most instances. Look for Police Scotland jobs, all the kind of call to action on all of the adverts, absolutely a must to have that on. So on this call, if you're doing anything in recruitment and you haven't got search going, please get search going, you'll need it. I've got a bit of a background in inclusion, accessibility, UX. I'm really interested in that, written research on it. I was really interested to help the team about the improved user experience. I think coming from public sector and NHS, our application process was absolutely chronic. I think people being able to actually put an application form in, as well as other sort of inclusive sort of ideas around recruitment in general, like getting questions in advance, that kind of thing is something that we should all be thinking about. So we discussed this within the team, accessibility, inclusion, about before they actually get to the application form, could we put something in for the team to actually help the candidates coming to them? I think, you know, it's just really important to start thinking about in them terms. And then the end-to-end measurement of the completed applications is still a bit of an ongoing story for me and Karine. We are absolutely nearly there. We really wanted to come to this presentation and say we've cracked it today, because we're on the cusp of cracking the absolute end-to-end measurement. But it's just still being tested today, so we will we will talk through that in a second. Thanks, Sonia. And again, so just wanted to run you through very quickly how it looks, what we've done. So we've got the adverts that are running on whatever channel, on Meta, on we've got TikTok now, Snapchat, we've got everything going, basically mix of channels, and we're just looking at the moment, we've been optimizing, and we've been, you know, on Google Display Network, news items, you name it, we've got it running. This here is a landing page that we set up for Police Scotland. So the adverts that we run, particularly because there's other people helping Police Scotland with the campaign, we had to make sure that we can show our workings basically, and be able to show Police Scotland what we were doing in terms of helping with the application. So this is the landing page that the adverts will click on the advert, go here. You can see here we've got the apply now. This is important thing to just note just in a second. This here is on the screen below this when you're on the landing page. This is the email form here. Please complete this form if you would like support to apply for the role. That's an email that goes to the recruitment team for a conversation with the recruitment team should they need actual help to do the application for user experience point of view, you know, something that they might need. For instance, if the recruitment system that you're using isn't accessible, you're using a screen reader, that any reason from a practical point of view, you'd find that hard. Now people have got a way of actually contacting the team to get a bit of support on that. So we're pleased to have a look at that and introduce that into the process. Thanks, Danielle. So this is what happens. People, they can go on the form if they need help, but they click on the apply now. That's the UX, the user experience, and then they go straight to the police officer recruitment page here and onto the recruitment process there. Thanks, Danielle. So the apply now button, the important part there is this is the dash that Karine gets every week from us and the team get from us. You know, it goes across every platform we're using and gives them a weekly update. This here is the form. So when a person has filled in a form, they get a prompt that people are filling in the forms. This here is the apply now click number. So we know that there's been 1,605 up until today's date apply now clicks. So Police Scotland are, you know, can be confident that they have had that many clicks on that button that's gone through. The next part that we're trying to crack is when they've completed. So the use of pixels that Tony talked about on the recruitment system, a little challenge for us, a little bit of to keep us on our toes. That's the next part of the process. So then Police Scotland actually say, yeah, this number was on the apply now click, and this is the number actually have completed. So the conversion pixel they completed, they've actually submitted, and that is gold for measurement, absolute gold standard. So at the moment we can give, we can see like from a channel point of view, what's performing, all of that stuff. But Police Scotland know that our ads are actually providing that number of clicks. So it's a useful stat and measure to have until we get this absolute end-to-end working, which will happen. I'm determined. Thanks, Danielle. I'll be quite quick now because time's to get on to give Corinne a chance to speak about her experience, but just a wee nod to My Job Scotland, because it's a brilliant service really in Scotland. And I think, you know, given the world that we live in with Indeed and other job boards and LinkedIn, for instance, we've got a local forum there really. I know Police Scotland have used it really effectively for events. So they've used it to do event posting about recruitment in person recruitment events. Because they had been placed on My Job Scotland previously, we were able to then use that data basically for retargeting. So this meta here is our retargeting through My Job Scotland. So people are warm, they've already been shown an interest in public sector jobs, and it's, you know, a decent amount of clicks for one. You know, it's meta, but that's showing the My Job Scotland link in and relationship there. Really, really useful thing to think about. And search, back to what again what Tony was saying about quality. We're really interested in giving Police Scotland quality applications, folk that are warm, folk that are thinking about this, you know, meet the demographics for what they need for the particular job specs, and then maybe later on for different jobs that Tony talked about for the different bits of branding. Thanks, Danielle. And yeah, so we really, you know, there's nothing better than a client testimonial. So we wanted to give Corinne time really and a chance here to just give a bit of feedback, how she's felt it's been working with us at Cannes, with me. And over to you, Corinne, how's it going?
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's been so helpful for us. As Leanne mentioned, when we engaged with Cannes, we'd reached a stage where we've created and we started implementing the brand, and we were running a campaign. But since starting the work in January, it has been really helpful just to do slightly more targeted marketing. So and use some channels that we hadn't used before as well, particularly search. And we have seen a direct impact from that, which I'll come on to talk about shortly. But you know, we have had, as mentioned, the sort of just over 10,500 clicks, and really that key thing, the 1,605 apply now actions, which is really helpful to actually know exactly how many have clicked onto that. And hopefully we will be in the stages of getting that conversion pixel live. That really is the next step for us to allow us to track advertising all the way through to completed applications. It's something we've never done before in Police Scotland, and certainly I agree that the form that we have on the landing page has really helped as well in terms of, you know, previously what we just had on and what we do have on the Police Scotland website, I guess, is an email that people can use, but the form has provided a slightly more accessible option, which is brilliant, and more user-friendly option. And you know, there was a slight nervousness at our end at first that would we get a sudden spike in inquiries and you know, more than we're used to, and would that increase demand for our recruitment team? But actually what we've found is we've had a steady flow of really genuine inquiries, and it's worked well for us on that side also. So I guess for the next slide, there are some key learnings for us as well. So yeah, the key learnings really at our end is that, as Leanne mentioned, activating search really was crucial. This was something we didn't have as part of our original paid campaign mix, and when we first engaged with Cannes, they emphasised the importance of this for both brand awareness and affordable results. And as was mentioned, we were just about to launch an advert on television and radio with the action search Police Scotland jobs, so it was crucial for us to make sure that that was performing well in search. And it did, you know, deliver results for us in January. We had an additional 4,000 searches on that term, Search Police Scotland job, which compares to 2,000 in the previous year, so almost double from last January, which is really positive. And we have seen an increase in traffic to Police Scotland's website as well, onto the landing page that you get to from that term. in the months of January and February, which also really is positive for us as well. One other big benefit that we've seen in the advice that Can have given us and what we've tried is considering just, as Tony mentioned, we've been A/B testing creative, but we hadn't thought to A/B test sort of audience, I guess, on channels. So our campaign has a huge, broad target audience of 18 to 45-year-olds. And what we've been doing up until working with Cam was just using a broad range of channels to try and reach demographics. So trying, channels like Meta and YouTube, but also testing out TikTok. But, Can came up with the suggestion of splitting audience across the same channel. So for instance, for Snapchat right now, we are running advertising for 18 to 25-year-olds, but also for the 25 plus audience, which for us, we hadn't thought to do that A/B testing, but it allows us to really fully assess the effectiveness of our advertising for the different age audience groups. And hopefully, as we are starting to now look ahead to next financial year, will help inform our strategy moving forward and what channels we use to reach such a broad age demographic. And as Leanne mentioned, My Job Scotland has been a big learning for us. So we were already on My Job Scotland and we were already advertising on Meta, but the retargeting and joining of the two has really been so positive. It's helping with that quality of application in terms of, using marketing to effectively reach an audience that's already engaged and warm. And that's, again, sort of a really important thing for us as this next stage of the campaign. And hopefully, very shortly, we will have our conversion pixels implemented, which will essentially allow us, as Leanne was saying, to fully assess somebody going from an advert all the way through to completing an application on our e-recruitment system. And for us, really, this is a big win when it's implemented. It's completing a missing piece of the puzzle. Since our campaign launched in September, we've been able to roughly work out what we think our cost per application is by looking at the total spend we're putting in onto media buying for advertising against the number of completed applications that have been submitted. However, we are unable to 100% attribute marketing activity to applications submitted. We do know that we've had an increase in our pipeline and monthly application figures since the campaign launched, and we can see our impressions, clicks, everything else. We do know it's working, but that would just give us that extra comfort to be able to 100% fully measure it, and also it would really help massively when we're reporting into our internal stakeholders and senior management within the service, because then we will be able to fully attribute marketing and advertising to applications and hopefully quality applications, and that will really help to see what channels are delivering for us. And hopefully for us, we're looking to then use that to inform our next steps. So yeah, it's been a really positive experience so far. Thank you.
Amazing. Promotion for me. John Paul on the call, yeah. Thanks, Danielle. I think just the one last slide from me. Be very quick because I'm super conscious of time. So we'll do a review of Police Scotland, what's next. Then we can have a look at other job types, the items that Tony mentioned there. Look at geographical priorities for Police Scotland if they so wish. We work with councils up in the Highlands and Islands, and obviously with the brilliant My Job Scotland. So there's loads of opportunities to do a bit of clever stuff and work in partnership with public sector. I'm always wanting a bit more partnership work across public sector, and recruitment is a perfect vehicle for that, I'd say. We just continue to drive costs down across all the channels and establish cost per application and get these pixels on. Corinne and I will make that happen. The next point. Thanks, John Paul.
Brilliant job. Thank you so much, Corinne and Leanne, for that. I think it's wonderful to see that there's a sort of emerging transparency around what you're doing up there. Corinne, have any of your colleagues and senior leadership fed back on what they're seeing? Are they interested in these new channels?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as Tony mentioned, we do have amongst our kind of immediate sort of leadership within recruitment, we do have a weekly Thursday meeting, and absolutely there is interest. I think there's a real desire to, because I guess it informs key decisions on things like, advertising for next year, budgets and spend, to look at what's performing. So there is definitely interest there, certainly from a recruitment senior management team and also within corporate comms. I think what we see is very senior leadership. They really just want to see outcomes. They want to know that the advertising is leading to actual applications. And I know that a lot of what the work we are doing also does support our recruitment team when they're also reporting in, because ultimately they're having to sign off a lot of the advertising spend and everything else. So yeah, no, there is definitely interest there.
That's brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us, and great job, Leanne, and keep persevering. It's wonderful to see the impact of that, and I think that increased confidence, increased understanding is something that everyone in this group could take away. Thank you so much. If it's all right, I'm just going to put in. I know we've only got 5 minutes left and got quite a little bit to share, but I wanted to show how some of those principles apply in other places. Can I just check you can see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
Amazing, thank you. Basically, what we're starting to see is from Tony's sage advice and what's working in Police Scotland, that candidate experience, where the ads go, and then over time reducing quality application is what really matters and what really gives value. Emerging from this are some principles which we're sort of putting together, and everyone is welcome to steal and amend as much as you like. But we need to really cover 3 things when we're doing really good quality recruitment marketing. One is to make sure it's inclusive. We always need to focus on saving and improving value for money. And I think if there's no data, we can't do our job. There's no data, there's no comms. And to fill those out a little bit, 90% of any target audience you should reach, and reach them frequently. I think you need a mix of, yes, digital, but also physical, with events and direct mail and things like that. All has its place, and you need that human connection element. You can't just rely on forms and ATSs to make those real connections with people, either if they're applying for a job now or if you're building a pool of people who will be up for jobs with you in the future. So it's really important to get that right. And accessibility throughout the experience is absolutely essential to ensure that we don't accelerate inequalities within our communities. In terms of how we can save, yes, there's reducing waste on things that don't work. There's then over time optimizing and reducing cost per application. And there's also that thing of, it's not so much just about numbers. A large volume of poor quality applications actually costs your team money. And so it's important that the quality of application goes up as well as cost per application going down. And making sure that we understand the data behind the audiences we're trying to reach, that we plan using data to reach them and to reach them frequently, and that enables us then to refine over time. So feel free to steal and adapt as much as you like, but these are the things that are underpinning all our work. Just some real quick examples that maybe enhance and augment what's already been said, but reaching certain communities on the news channels that they're using. When you're engaging young people, definitely consider platforms like Snapchat. And when you're trying to target certain communities, considering using LLMs to translate the entire user experience. Those simple user experiences, we've seen them working not just here, but in Surrey and in Southwest London NHS. And we're able to see these simplified user experiences improving how we're able to optimize. In Surrey, over 1,500 people applied with long-term physical and mental health conditions to get back into work. And in Southwest London, you can see that blue line going down, the orange line going up as we optimize to, I think, a cost per application of £7.20. Really impressive stuff. With the City of London, we worked with James at Turn the Page and the team at Alive. They wanted to recruit 200 new officers from diverse backgrounds. We used TikTok and Snapchat to target very specific audiences, and we generated over 400 applications from a really diverse audience of young people across London. And we were able to show that using wonderful digital and measurement technology. Also looking at, in the fire side of things, looking at recruiting contingency crew, again using a mixture of Facebook, Snapchat, but also a whole load of different sites. You see the wp.pl, that's a Polish website there, Sport Bible, a whole range, a Daily Record, and so on, a whole range of different channels that the audiences were using. And we were then able to see the correlation between interactions and applications, and also make sure that we were getting a good geographical spread, which is very important with contingency crew. On larger campaigns, we're really able to drill down and see what channels are driving outcomes. And by using QR codes, search insight, and so on, we're really able to see what drives what. And we're finding that paid digital is brilliant at reach and delivering a low cost per click. But when we look at all other paid, we see much, much higher cost per interaction. In this instance, the vast majority of interaction was actually driven by direct mail. So when we're making channel choices, I think it's important to be able to communicate this to people who might be telling us to use channels. And one way we do this is say that if we rung you up and said we'd cut your energy bill by a factor of 2.7, you'd probably switch. If we asked you to switch to a plan that was 27 times less, you'd switch and probably tell your friends and family. But actually that statistic is 277 times more effective. And so when we've got budgets, there are vast improvements that can be made by switching away from less measurable to more measurable and lower cost channels. Another way I put that, if you imagine your commute home being a 45-minute packed public transport commute, that's the difference between that and being beamed onto your sofa in 9 seconds. So there are huge things that we can do as communication professionals to help improve what we're doing, to help our organizations move away from stuff we kind of know in our guts don't work, whilst using a little bit of stuff that actually does, towards this. So looking at those things that that really work, remarketing from people that have been to job sites to your own site. In previous examples, remarketing has delivered 65% of the applications. Search, an essential part of ensuring that people who are looking find you, but also that you get people who are looking for any sort of work and bring them to you. And use of public sector owned channels. Council's the biggest media owner in their area. Their channels can really have a huge impact on reducing that cost per outcome. So next year, moving away from the sort of indies, the untargeted jobs boards, using buses, radio, things like that, and jumping people straight into ATSs, and maybe not giving your potential employees the best experience of your employer brand, and moving much more towards public sector owned, really targeted, wherever your audiences are, particularly the audiences that you want to increase representation from, and keep using those really simple landing pages, user experiences, bring humans in whenever you can, and that will build trust in your brand. If they don't apply now, you've probably moved them up a few points in terms of considering you as a future employer. So to drill that down a little bit further, if you really want to improve your recruitment in next financial year, consider getting in touch with Tony for an MOT. He'll help you find out where you need to focus your efforts and maybe communicate a little bit better with your seniors about how they can empower you to do better. Consider inclusivity in everything, in channel choice, in accessibility, and in how you support people through the application process. Consider stopping a number of things that are going on at the moment that probably aren't driving quality or increasing waste. Collaborate in the Blue Light Comms hub, but also with each other, with partners across the public sector, councils, jobs organisations, all these sorts of things, because there is huge power in collaboration. And then listen to what the data is saying and learn. The ability to do this now is unparalleled in terms of our careers so far, and there is so much that can be done to improve what we do, especially if we all work together. So that's what the Blue Light Comms Hub is all about. Thank you very much for your time today. Thank you particularly to our wonderful speakers, Tony, Corinne and Leanne, for the wonderful work you do. Next week's session is looking at domestic violence and violence against women and girls. We're doing this to make it easier for you all to improve together, so please share with colleagues and employees, colleagues and peers in other organisations. And we hope you have a wonderful weekend. Look forward to seeing you soon.